and good evening to our fellow listeners and followers. It is 8:23 p.m. on Sunday, February 25th. This is Federico Lyons of States Rights Radio and
Seth Hancock of Seth Hancock Reports. And tonight's episode we'll be talking about the First Amendment extends to all kinds of speech. What it does not extend to is freedom to violence. We'll be talking about the First Amendment, and First Amendment is one of those things that gets under attack constantly by both sides in many different ways. We got cases of possible hate crimes being charged against a teen for doing some burnouts on a street that happened to have a gay pride mural painted on the street, and we see things going on campus where they're really trying to shut down any dissent with regards to Israel and Palestine. The First Amendment tends to be under assault quite a bit, especially these days. But we need to really understand what our rights are and stand up for them. Whether you agree with a person's speech or not, you need to stand with their right to speak.
Absolutely. I do agree that, no matter how despising and obnoxious is a person speaking at a group or at a rally, it is their First Amendment right. I don't agree with half of the groups out there. Some I do. But I choose to listen or I choose to ignore. That's my First Amendment right. And, one thing I want to bring up is that the Westboro Baptist Church went up to the Supreme Court because they were targeting funerals of a homosexual young man that serviced our country. And they targeted them. As much as I despise the Westboro Baptist Church, but, they do have a right to give their speech, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, and all that. As long as they don't incite violence and the other side doesn't begin it, we should be able to ignore them and just go about our lives. I never agree with Justice Alito on his dissent, and he's kind of denying the First Amendment right. Because you cannot deny it from one group and give it to another group. The Constitution doesn't give privilege. The Constitution gives equality. So we all have to listen to these individuals, agree or disagree, ignore or partake. That's our beauty of keeping a safe and sanity republic. So, that's mainly what I believe in the First Amendment. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah, you bring up the Westboro Baptist Church. Also remember, I think it was in the 90s when the neo-Nazis marched in Skokie, Illinois, which is a heavily Jewish town in my neck of the woods. And, the ACLU defended the neo-Nazis, and they were right. As despicable as what the neo-Nazis believe, they had the right to march in Skokie and get a permit to march. And even that's another thing. I think, because I think they were marching in the streets, so you had to get a permit for that. But what I'm seeing, one of the towns that I cover for the local newspaper here, just effectively set up free speech zones in the village, because they don't want people protesting in front of Village Hall. So they set aside a small little area near Village Hall where people can, hold protest signs and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, if you're on public property, you have the right to protest wherever you are, as long as you're not assaulting people and doing. But you have the right to use your free speech and hold signs, whether you're in front of Village Hall or to the side of Village Hall. And we see things like that going on across the country, and we see that especially in college campuses, on public state college campuses where they're setting up free speech zones. Well, if you're on public property, it doesn't. It's all free speech zone. I mean, that's in America, the entirety of the public land is a free speech zone. So that's something that's been coming up to help. That's kind of attacking free speech too. It's just we need to support people's right to speak. If they are if they're harassing people, then there's a problem, and we need to have a clear, objective standard on what constitutes harassment. But if they're just speaking, they're just holding signs, it doesn't matter if you agree with them or not. You should defend their right to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to do a little fact check, it was in the late 1970s where the Supreme Court let the National Socialist Workers Party march in Skokie. But again, not even the Nazis, where the SCLU defended the Nazis, but also the Black Panthers, the Nation of Islam, the famous case of Muhammad Ali, aka Cassius Clay, where he didn't want to go fight based on his religious beliefs and his First Amendment right. And, the Supreme Court gave the right for the, in the 1950s, the Jehovah's Witnesses not to partake in the Korean War, but yet they were going to force Muhammad Ali to go fight in the Vietnam War. And again, the Constitution cannot offer privilege under law. It can offer equality under law. So, many people were upset about Muhammad Ali not going to fight for Vietnam, but yet people were okay Jehovah's Witnesses not partaking in a war. So you cannot be hypocritical about it. But in the basis of hate crime, like I said, no matter how despicable and obnoxious these people are, they have a right to say what they want. Now, you're right. If they're on public property, their First Amendment should not be denied. If they're on private property or a private enterprise or in a social media, that's private enterprise. You're on you're not going to go in the middle of Costco or Walmart and start screaming because you're in a private establishment, so they can force you out. They have a right to kick you out. But in City Hall or anything that's city property or public property, they don't have, you can start preaching on the sidewalk and nobody can do anything because that is public property. So, but, in the basis of these hate crimes that are occurring that, I know Seth brought out certain individuals were burning and taking and ripping apart pride flags. As much as, many people don't like pride flags. Many people are disgusted by them or whatever. Again, let it be. That's them. That's their property. You're destructing their property. You shouldn't do that. You can stand in front of their house on the sidewalk and you can preach about it. You can preach against it, but you can't partake in violence because the Constitution doesn't have that. So, these, for example, the Matthew Shepard situation where, this young homosexual student was beaten and murdered in Wyoming, outside of the University of Wyoming, that is uncalled for because that's violence. And, those perpetrators should be not subject to a hate crime violation. If not, they should be charged with a murder violation, with a murder charge, not a hate crime charge, a murder charge. Because they may scream out to Matthew Shepard, "Hey, you F this, you F that, yada yada yada," that's their, it's stupid, but, they can say what they want and you can just ignore them. But once you kill, once you provoke violence, once you incite violence, all bets are off and you should be charged with murder, not with a hate crime charge, because that, that's a violation of your First Amendment. I know many people don't want to hear it, but it is. It's a violation of their First Amendment right, not to commit murder, but to do whatever you want. They can say whatever they want, but as far as murder, no, you shouldn't be off the hook.
Yeah. When it comes to hate crimes, I mean, how do you prove somebody's motivations? That's one of the big things. I mean, like you brought up the Matthew Shepard case. From things that I've read about it, there's been this false narrative that he was killed because he was gay, but in reality, he actually knew the guys who killed him, and that there was probably a lover's quarrel. Now, I don't know what the truth is there, but how do you prove that you've got them on murder. I mean, you got all the evidence you need to lock them up and probably even execute them. So why do you need to add on this hate crime that shouldn't exist? I mean, there shouldn't be hate crimes. And I take this kid now down in Florida, and I don't know this kid. I don't know his motivation. I mean, how many kids, he's 19 years old, have done burnouts on the streets just for the fun of it? So how do you prove that he did this because he hates gay people? You're creating, and this comes to comes to something we talk about a lot, about knowing your rights. If you got somebody coming up to you, if you got a cop coming up to you, accusing you of possibly committing a hate crime, exercise your right to remain silent, because how are you going to prove that my motivations for whatever I do? It's just kind of silly in the end, because there's no way to collect evidence unless people freely give it, which that's a problem in and of itself, because we live in a society where people don't know their rights. It's just kind of silly. Hate crime laws are just kind of silly. Like you're prosecuting somebody for their thoughts. And you can't do that. I mean, you gotta prosecute, like this kid in Florida who did the burnout. As far as I'm concerned, it's a ticketable offense. He did a burnout. There were some other people around. Okay, ticket him and move on. But now he's charged with a felony. And, they're trying to get him more for doing a burnout on a street, something that loads of teens have done forever just for having some fun, because, they enjoy doing that when you're a teen. But, it's just the hate crimes are just they're not enforceable when you think about how do you gather evidence to prove somebody did something out of hate, and how do we define hate? I mean, is it just because of somebody, you committed a crime against somebody of another race or somebody of another religion? What about somebody who hates who ends up getting in a beef with a friend and hates his friend, and commits a crime against him? It's just kind of silly overall.
Well, I mean, let's say that you and I get into a quarrel, and I say hateful and hurtful things, just hypothetical, of course. But how can the cops say that there's malicious intent to to charge me with anything. I'm just speaking words. I'm not saying, I'm going to kill you, Seth. I'm just saying hateful things based on your race, your ethnicity, whatever. How can prosecutors gather evidence on that? I mean, it's just a way of your thoughts. Now, I'm never going to say that because I don't, we're friends and all that. But someone in the street, yells out something. Oh, you're a stupid person. I mean, that's a hateful thing. You're a stupid person. Can they charge me for a crime for saying you're a stupid person? I mean, are we that PC that we cannot even, give that thought? Maybe that person is stupid. Maybe he did a stupid thing. Who knows? But the thing is that, you're a stupid person. I'm going to kill you. Well, that's a different story. And then if you act on it, that's another different story, and you have evidence on that. So, I mean, we are now at an age where people just, say things. And just because we say them doesn't mean that we're gonna do malicious intent on it. For people that do malicious intent, the charge is murder, rape, assault and battery, etc. Those are provable and reasonable charges to charge somebody with. But for somebody to have hate, I mean, as much as I despise Trump and the hate speech that he's done, he has a right to say it. I may not agree with it, but he has brought a lot of hate to this country, and we've seen it all across the country towards Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, same-sex Americans, same-sex couples Americans. So, he may say that, but yet again, the people who do violence is the ones that really should be held accountable, not people who say it. But that's also what I also want to bring up with this sense of, again, I know we've said this word hundreds of times, but I think it's like a broken record, itchy and irritating. It's tribalism. It's the tribalism politics that, well, my group says it, but your group can't say it. Or when Obama tried to do the fairness doctrine and try to impose fairness doctrine on the media, but, and conservatives got mad, but then later Trump comes along and he does his own fairness doctrine. And, you're like, what's going on here? Where are people going to realize that the Constitution doesn't give privilege to one organization or one person or one persons to another? You cannot deny my First Amendment right to protect that person's First Amendment right. That's not what, this country was not established like that. I may dislike Trump and I have a right to say it. I don't like Trump. I don't like Biden. I like Calvin Coolidge. That's my First Amendment right. Nobody has a right to deny me that. And so this world that we've now entered, and this also comes in with the hate crime situation. It has become too much of a tribalism politics where the right doesn't like it, the left likes it, and it's created a lot of ruckus. And it's really got to stop here.
Yeah, and just kind of speaking about hypocrisy, and it used to be hate crimes were kind of championed by the left, and now today it's a lot of so-called right-wing states that are doing it. In your state of Florida, they just recently. The last couple of years, I think 2019, they passed something that basically, under the guise of protecting Jewish Americans, basically passed a hate crime law that penalizes people who want to boycott Israel, and they made the language so open-ended that just criticism of the government of Israel is considered anti-Semitic, which is just nonsense. We're allowed to criticize governments, especially when our government steals our money and gives to governments around the world all the time, I'm going to criticize those governments and say why we shouldn't be giving foreign aid. And then Florida recently went even further with their hate crime laws to become one of the most draconian states in America, where, effectively, and they were targeting this group that was handing out flyers that, quite frankly, I think I've seen the flyers and they were anti-Semitic. They were ridiculous stuff in the flyers, but they have the right to pass it out. They weren't making threats against anybody. They weren't. There was nothing in them that could be construed as illegal. It was just hateful content, and you have the right to hate people. I'm sorry that's the uncomfortable part of life. We have to deal with it. That people have different beliefs than you have. But basically, you can be charged with a felony if your pamphlet is found, like you can get a felony for littering because your pamphlet, and you might not have even been the one who littered, but somebody took your flyer and threw it on the ground, and they find it, and they'll go after the group for it, and that's just nonsense. This is. I thought we were supposed to be for less government. I thought we don't want to be locking people up for their speech, no matter how much you might find it reprehensible. This is very, it's very scary when you realize that both sides play the same game, and they really aren't really that far apart. They both believe in using the government to silence viewpoints that they don't like, and that's why we need more people to stand up for that the old adage that I may not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it, and that's why we need to get rid of this get away from this tribalist politics that we're in.
No, yeah, absolutely. This tribalist politics has gone too far enough. And also, Florida is the cradle of hypocrisy, where, the left got upset when the Supreme Court said that corporations have First Amendment rights and they can do what they want and say what they want. And yet again, here comes my state of Florida denying a corporation its First Amendment right. You really cannot do that. The Supreme Court has already said it. You cannot cancel a corporation's, you cannot punish a person or corporation based on their First Amendment right. So just because Disney was mocking DeSantis' stupid law of Don't Ask Gay Bill, whatever it's called, he has no right to go after them and punish them. So this sense of tribalism that is occurring, and when Obama criticized the Supreme Court on the decision of Citizens United versus FEC, Alito muttered the words "not true." Again, you're playing into this tribalism politics. Presidents should not even have an opinion on the Supreme Court. Presidents have to keep quiet. Presidents should not say anything, but yet again, we go into Andrew Jackson, where the Supreme Court tells the president, you cannot displace the Native American tribes. And Andrew Jackson, as the first Trumper, as I like to call it, he gave an opinion to it. No, you don't give opinions. You say, as much as you may disagree with what the Supreme Court says, and they're the last voice in the Constitution, you have to abide by it. You have to go with it. And now, there's ways that you can, I'm sure they're going to change it, their interpretation in the future. But in the meantime, you're going to have to know what they mean and say what they mean, and you have to go with it. So presidents should not even have an opinion on it. Biden had it when they reversed Roe versus Wade. Trump had it I forgot I don't know if there was any major cases during Trump's, but I'm sure he had a big mouth opinion on it. Obama had his, Bush had his. So, Clinton has had his opinion, and presidents don't get to have opinions when it comes to Supreme Court ruling opinions. They really don't. Just keep your mouth shut, follow what the law is, follow what the Constitution is, and just go with it. But yet this tribalism politics is getting really out of hand, where they give their opinion, and so they try to cheer their side of the aisle and upset the other side, and then, and vice versa. So, enough's enough. First Amendment is for everybody, not for a specific group or groups. And that's, just, it really just ticks me off, this sense of thing. And, that they can say, well, they do it, but why can't we? No, they can't do it and you can't do it. We all have to abide by it.
Yeah, we just need to have, we need to, I hate to bring up somebody like a Ben Shapiro, because I think he's a hypocrite in many ways. But his line about facts don't care about your feelings is the way we should kind of view things, and we should be open to listening to opinions we don't agree with. It can help your arguments. I remember why I got into journalism was basically my college professor, an English teacher, who was the exact opposite of me politically. She believed that guns should be completely banned. I, of course, do not, and I was the opposite of her on that, and we had great debates. And I remember writing a piece about gun control for an argumentative paper that we had to write. And as much as she disagreed with my opinion in my paper, she gave me an A because she thought I wrote a great piece. And it's important to listen to voices that you disagree with, and it helps you formulate your own arguments against what the other side is saying. And today we've got both sides trying to silence the other side, and it just creates more divide, and it creates for an unhealthy society.
Yeah, yesterday I was at a local bar, and I was just writing, and then this couple of Cuban Americans come, and we started talking, and he, I don't want to cast any stereotypes, but because of him being Cuban American, he was a Trump supporter, and I said, okay, that's fine. I'm neither. I'm neither Trump or Biden or whoever. I'm just for the Constitution. And we both came to agreements that we both respect our opinions and all that. So, we didn't scream, we didn't say anything, we didn't call each other names. We just started talking and chatting, and that's what makes us a healthy republic, is that, open dialogue and open discussion without the sense of being called names or resort to violence. That's what the First Amendment is to hear ideas and see, do these ideas work? Will they work? Typically, I don't agree with the ideas of Nazis or Soviets or communists. I don't agree with them. Do they have a right in their speech? Yeah, that's I may not agree with it. I don't want that policy in this country, but they have a right to say it. They're probably going to get 1% of the vote, because I would say about maybe 60% of Americans don't like those type of ideas. But that's what makes this country great, this nation great, is that we can exchange ideas and all that. Without resorting to violence or something like that, similar to that. So, and you bring up your days in your college and my days in college were about the same time. In my college, my political science professor was a very liberal, progressive lady, but yet she always gave me a good grace because she respected my First Amendment rights in my First Amendment speech, and there was no issues back then. But nowadays, it's something different. It's like they're shutting you down, regardless of who you are, and quite honestly, they can't do that. No matter how you may disagree with me, but I have a right to say it, and I also have a right to also give you the right to say your speech. So, bottom line is, I will always say what I say. Like I said, I don't like Trump. I don't like Trump, and I have a right to say it. You may not like it. You may like Trump. I don't like Trump. So, you should not punish me. You should not commit a violent act against me because that is a murderous charge. It's not a hate crime when I say I don't like Trump. I hope Trump won't revise the federal hate crime law to include those things. God forbid. But, it's not a hate crime. It's just that I don't like Trump. And people should respect that. The same thing as I don't like Biden, or I don't like, Saul Alinsky, or, Margaret Sanger, or whoever. It's healthy discussions for a healthy debate that we should have as a nation. We should have.
Yeah, and one of the problems we debate all these political circus, political theater aspects, and we don't have the kind of philosophical discussions that we should have, and what is the government's authority? And we live in a time where everybody within the tribalist warfare seems to think government has ultimate authority, as long as they're using their authority to go after the other tribe. Whereas, I go back to, COVID and the lockdowns, I've come to believe a lot of nefarious things were going on in terms of all the tabletop exercises they were doing leading up to COVID. But I didn't know any of that at the time. My opposition to all the COVID lockdown was just from the philosophical standpoint that I don't believe government has authority to lock us down over viruses and diseases. I don't think they have a role in my healthcare and my safety when it comes to medical issues. But everybody accepts the government's power, and that's the conversations we should be having, is these philosophical discussions and talking about foundational principles. And we've lost that, and we're just becoming further divided, and it's not healthy for us.
No, it's not. And, you're right. We should have philosophical dialogue and discussions about that. One last point I want to bring out is, with the whole First Amendment and kneeling, doing the national anthem with the Pledge of Allegiance, again, this is where tribalism politics takes place, and it's annoying, it's disturbing and sickening, where, this tribalism politics, goes. I'm gonna go see a football game. I don't care if Kaepernick kneels down or whoever kneels down. I'm here to see a football game. I'm gonna have a beer, have a hot dog, and just chill. I don't care if he sits, if he kneels, if he, whatever. That's his. That's his thing. That's his opinion. I mean, the Pledge of Allegiance, I got newsflash for you. It was written by a Christian socialist. I mean, the Pledge of Allegiance, we're not pledging allegiance to a flag, to a nation. We're pledging allegiance to a flag that it's a material thing. The same thing with national anthem. It's a song. Yeah, it's a very patriotic song because it's your national anthem. But, the First Amendment trumps the national anthem. So if this individual wants to bend the knee or kneel or sit at it or sit on the grass, that's their choice. I know I really have no say in that, and I really don't care. I'm just here to see a football game or a baseball game or etc. Sometimes when maybe I'm tired and I don't want to stand up with the national anthem and I'm falling asleep, particularly in a baseball game. I think it's a boring game, so I'm always falling asleep. So this sense of tribalism, that they attack athletes on that. Enough, because you have the left that supports them, you have the right that despises them. Enough already. Just let us play in peace and respect our First Amendment right, and that's I mean, it's just got to stop, and we just got to respect our rights as citizens and people of this country. We got to respect. You've really got to respect our rights. I wouldn't incite violence to that effect. There's no need for that, because then you'll be charged with the exact charge that should be, and not on a hate crime. Because you may say, "Oh, you communist! What are you sitting in the middle of the national anthem?" Well, yeah, I'm a communist. Okay, fine, call me a communist. It's not. I mean, that's not a hateful thing. That's just his opinion, and I'm not gonna press charges for that. I'm gonna ignore him. But if he, dumps a cup of beer on me or something, that's an assault, and I will press charges against that. But not because he's calling me a communist. So enough's enough with the tribalism thing here, folks.
Yeah, I will first say I am a baseball fan, so I'm going to accuse you of a hate crime for what you just said. But seriously, that's the Colin Kaepernick situation. I remember that, and Donald Trump had to exert himself into this, and I remember this that at that time, Colin Kaepernick was the only one taking a knee during the national anthem. And, honestly, on a personal level, I didn't like it. I know the history of how the national anthem was written, the Star-Spangled Banner, the poem that was written for it. And it is something that I still get warm feelings about when I think about that story, but I was kind of like, I don't like what Colin Kaepernick's doing, but come on, leave it alone. You're gonna create something more. You're making a mountain out of a molehill, and Donald Trump opens his mouth, and guess what? Then you had a whole movement of NFL players across the NFL taking a knee. That's what happened when you made this massive issue out of something that was kind of like, just ignore it. If you don't like what Colin Kaepernick's doing, and I'm with you on that, but it's not that big of a deal. It's not this big national issue that we need to be making something major out of. And then, you bringing up the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, that's another one. I mean, it's written by a socialist. I personally, I cover a lot of board meetings, and they always do the national anthem, or not national, the Pledge of Allegiance, and I always stand for it, because I'm not trying to make a political statement, but I don't recite it because I don't like reciting socialist pledges. And also, I'm a Christian, and I personally don't believe Christians should be pledging allegiance to anything but God. And so that's another problem. But we have the right to not recite the pledge. We have the right to not stand for the national anthem. I personally like the national anthem. I don't like people who I don't like it when people don't stand for it, but they have the right to, and that's that's the standard, that you stand for people's rights whether you like it or not.
Well, in my defense, to counter your charge against baseball, I mean, I would say that, my I know they haven't won. Have they won anything? The Cubbies, have they recently won anything?
Yeah, 2016.
2016 they won. Okay, yeah, I'm a Cubbies fan, and all that. When I see the Cubbies, but that's the only team. But bottom line is that the thing that really kills me and is people go on with this tribalism thing and all that, and it's whether you like it or you agree with it, it's their choice, their life. Let's not make a federal case out of it. Let's not bring it, let's not make it a national issue. But again, that's what politicians does. That's what candidates do. They make it a federal issue, a national issue. And, I think there was even some type of legislation to stand for the national anthem or something like that. Or people were bringing up that proposal. Enough is enough, So, this, like I said, if this person calls me a communist because I don't want to stand, okay, fine, call me a communist. That's not a hate crime. It's his right to call me a communist. Like I said, if he dumps his beer on me or hits me with a hot dog, then that's a different story, and he's gonna feel the law in him. But, the bottom line is this country has a First Amendment. And it's the only country that actually, we get to criticize our government, and that is a beauty thing. Other countries place you in protective custody, and they take you away to concentration camps or gulags or whatever. This country does not. So, I know after Ginsburg passed, Katie Couric wrote in her memoirs that Justice Ginsburg, the late Justice Ginsburg, she actually ridiculed the people who kneeled for the flag and didn't stand up for the flag. I'm like, wait a minute, this is the same Ginsburg that has always been has always been the progressive one, and now she's acting like a Trumper. Give me a break. I mean, if those were truly her last words, then, she's a hypocrite, and I have no respect for her. So, again, we have a First Amendment right. The Supreme Court has never denied a First Amendment right to anybody, and I hope they will not, because then that would, put a privilege on one group and not the other, and you cannot have that. So, as much as you despise, as much as I despise Nazis, socialists, Nation of Islam, Black Panthers, Westboro Baptist Church, and anybody in that group that does spew hatred, but they have a right to say it, I choose to ignore them. The KKK, I choose to ignore them because I don't want to waste my eyesight or my hearing on that type of talk. So if people don't want to listen to me in my First Amendment speech, they can turn me off. They can send me. They can put something else. That's fine. I'm not going to get offended. If you don't like it, okay, fine. Goodbye, and I'll get another set of group that will listen to me and will agree with me or not agree with me. But we need more dialogue in this country. We need more respect. And so, in conclusion, for me, we need more respect. We need more tolerance, and we need people and the government to respect. And on both sides, our First Amendment right, because that's what this country is about. It's freedom to speak our mind, not to act on it. And I hope people really do see that and stop with this tribalism crapola that is inflicting on us. That's really making us very sick and dangerous.
Yeah, just I'll restate the Voltaire quote that I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. That should be the mindset of Americans, that we defend people's rights, whether we agree with how they're using them or not. I mean, that's what America is supposed to be about, is upholding rights, not using government to shut us down.
Correct. And with that note, we're going to leave you off with that thought of read your First Amendment right, know your First Amendment right, choose to ignore, not to incite violence and not to partake in violence, and wish you a week ahead. And we'll see you next Sunday. And with that note, have yourself a great night.
Good night.